What does it say?
Yeah, I hear talking in the background from a guy.
That's okay. We're starting now. Welcome to New Realities. This is another show on Vital Health News. I am back with Doc Wallach and Carolyn Casey. Doc, you're an expert on nutrition. You've handled it all, and you have some very exciting new products coming out that can help people even maintain more vitality and health. Can you talk about that?
Okay, sure. Well, thank you so much, and welcome to everybody. And thank you, Alan. And basically, what makes me different is I do have a degree in agriculture. My major was in animal husbandry and nutrition. My minor was in field crops and soils. I have a degree in veterinary medicine. I do have a postdoctoral fellowship from Washington University in the Center for the Biology of Natural Systems, which is kind of like a PhD degree. Where I did 20,000 autopsies, and it's in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure because my research showed in 20,000 autopsies that there are no genetically transmitted diseases. When your doctor doesn't know what you got, he says, well, you got bad genes. That way it takes responsibility off of him or her, right? And so I also showed there were no genetically transmitted birth defects. All birth defects are preventable. And so it's one of those things where if you don't take responsibility, you will have problems. Then lastly, I became a naturopathic physician in 1982. I taught nutrition and biochemistry at the National College of Naturopathic Medicine and Oregon, Portland, Oregon, for, I don't know, 10 years. And now it's called the National University of Naturopathic Medicine. So they've upgraded from a college to a university, very proud of that. I see about 2 million patients a day throughout the world through the eyes of my associates. And they all give the same answer to the same questions because I have 15 best-selling books on the subjects. I have over 110 best-selling CDs. Some of them are in 9 or 10 languages. The biggest one, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, is in 9 languages, and we've sold over 600 million copies of that one, just like going like crazy. And then we have 5,000 products that deal with over 600 different diseases. So again, you have to have these tools, the books and the CDs and DVDs, so that people are going to give the same answer to the same question. We're not, letting 2 million people contact me every day, and you're going to get 2 million different answers. Everybody's going to get the same answer because everybody has the same tools. Just like if you're working in a shop and or an assembly line, everybody is using the same tool. That way, what comes out the other end is always going to be the same. Well, what I want to do is talk about the red warning lights because we have 30-something states in the United States where the COVID infections are spiking. Some of it has to do with just how much testing they're doing. These are not even, they don't have any clinical signs. They're just positive for COVID, but they don't have any clinical disease. And then it's also one of those things where the metabolic syndrome, these are the pre-existing conditions that we always talk about. And in the metabolic syndrome, we're talking about, they're all nutritional deficiency diseases. And we're talking about obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, elevated triglycerides, which can be a liver thing, and all kinds of stuff with thyroid, kidney failure, dialysis, and so on. And all of these are the results of nutritional deficiencies. And if you treat them nutritionally, they go away. But the medical system treats symptomatically. I'll tell you 2 very, very well done studies, one of which we've probably talked about before, but it goes to all these pre-existing conditions, okay? And you look at Johns Hopkins, very famous medical school, Johns Hopkins, Baltimore, Maryland, and they did a study which started in 2013 and ended, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. They said the number 3 cause of death in American hospitals is medical errors. Number 1 is cardiovascular disease. Number 2 is cancer. And does that mean people get a heart attack, they run to the hospital and they die of a heart attack in the hospital? Or did they die from infections in the hospital? Do they die from complications of procedures? They didn't explain that detail. Same way, number 2, cause of death in hospitals in America, according to Johns Hopkins, in this 7-year study, was cancer. Do they get diagnosed with cancer? They run to the hospital and die in the waiting room, or did they die from infections following surgery, or did they die from chemotherapy and radiation? They didn't go into that detail. The number 3 cause of death in American hospitals each year was the one that really interested me, Alan. This was attributed to medical errors. The number 3 cause of death in American hospitals each year is attributed to medical errors. Now, this is Johns Hopkins printing this in medical journals, not me. I'm just reporting what they printed in this 7-year study. And they said each year in America, medical doctors kill, that's the word they use, kill 251,000 to 440,000 patients each year in hospitals in America alone. And they get a walk. Nobody gets charged, nobody goes to jail. And it just blows your mind. Okay. Now, how many businesses could stay in business, Alan, if they kill 251,000, 440,000 of their customers at their workplace every year? They'd be out of business in one breath.
How do they get away with this? Why is it sanctioned? And how come no one's doing anything about it?
Well, because there's a connection between medical doctors and politicians. Everybody wants good medical care. They want good prevention. And so politicians know this. You vote for me and I'll give you free medical care. You vote for me. You get the idea here. And so since the politicians are backing the doctors, they just put their hands over their eyes and say, that can't be true. Now, just about a week ago, the Lancet, which is the top British medical journal, kind of like our JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, Lancet is the term for a scalpel in England, and it's their top medical journal. They came out and said that the medical schools all over the world have failed us. That was the title of their article, or editorial, I guess it was. They said medical schools only teach medical students to be pill pushers. I'm quoting them. That's their word. They teach medical students to be pill pushers to treat symptoms. They never they never teach how to prevent and cure the disease. Only one pharmaceuticals, of all the thousands and tens of thousands of different pharmaceuticals there's only one class of pharmaceuticals that cure anything, and that's antibiotics. They can kill strep throat, they can kill staph infection, they can kill salmonella, bowel infections, that sort of stuff. But other than antibiotics, there's not a single prescription drug on the market that cures anything. They all treat symptoms. Of course, I've had pain for 20 years. I just love my doctor. He gave me this new drug that's out. I'm one of the first ones he said to get it. My pain was gone in 3 minutes. After 20 years of suffering, in 3 minutes, my pain was gone. I just love my doctor. I'm going to leave him in my will. I'm just going to tell everybody about him. I'm going to vote for the politician who supports my doctor. And then 2 years later, here it comes. 2 years later, the doctor gets $50,000 per knee because you need a double knee transplant, because just relieving the symptoms, just relieving the pain didn't stop the progression of the nutritional deficiency that caused the arthritis.
Right. It's a crime, isn't it?
Yes, it is a crime. It's a multiple felonies. In some cases, it's second degree murder. In some cases, they know they're going to kill the patient, but their kids' tuition for college is due, so they're going to do the procedure anyway because they need the money to pay the tuition. They know it's going to kill the patient. Okay, but they do it anyway. Yep. And so I'm just putting this stuff out, of course. We do have books and CDs and DVDs. We do have a DVD and a CD that's out now. It's my co-author on the book and the CD and DVD. It's called Is Your Doctor Killing You? No, that's not true. It's called Your Doctor Is Killing You. Okay. And goes into these research projects and details and so forth. And that should be something, the CDs are like $3 each, and the DVD version of it is, I think, $10. And it's all my co-authors on the CD and DVD is a pharmacist. Okay. And this guy just is has his own Zoom, and we do Zoom with him every Monday morning. We have thousands of people, who come on there to hear this discussion between he and I, because he's a classical pharmacist, okay, licensed. He still practices pharmacy in the United States, so we have a good time and getting that information out. Now, also, I want you to know we do have the book, let's see here, Immortality. And also the book has a CD that goes along with it, Immortality.
What do you mean by immortality? What does that mean? What?
Okay, immortality means, immortality talks about long life.
Not living forever.
Well, Methuselah was the guy who's credited with living the longest at 969 years. Okay, and I have a list of all the long-lived peoples that are over 500 years of age. Okay, in the introduction, I have a list of those. And someday when we have time, I can read them one by one. Some of the names are familiar with people, but Methuselah is the one that everybody knows, 969. He was the grandfather of Noah. Kind of puts you in perspective, right? Okay. And so what we did was we looked at the top 10 cultures on Earth that are currently the longest lived peoples on Earth. What is it those top 10 cultures do differently than us? Okay. They don't have better medical system. We spend more money for healthcare than all the other nations of the world combined, Alan. We spend more for healthcare than all the other countries combined. I think there's like 215 countries in the world. We spend more than all of them combined. We only rank 41st, 41 when it comes to longevity. There's 40 other nations whose peoples live longer than us, even though we spend more money for healthcare than all of them combined. So we looked at who's doing what, why is it they live longer? And it comes down to what they eat, what they don't eat, where they live, where they don't live. Okay. And
the key to that is not just but the minerals that one group is taking in or not taking in, right?
Well, that's because of where they live. Now, the longest lived peoples on Earth are from Hunza. Okay. And I was one of the 5 featured speakers at the Tesla meeting last year in August of 2019. There were 5 featured speakers. I was one of them. I spoke twice. And my lecture is in their magazine, the 4th Quarter magazine, by the same title. Okay. Extraordinary Technology Conference. Okay. And the 2019 4th Quarter magazine has my talk in it printed. And then I have the DVD with all the slides in my presentation. Okay. And so when you look at the peoples who live the longest, you could say naturally, without doctors, they're getting all 90 essential nutrients, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 acids, 3 fatty acids, because they live in places where there's glaciers that grind up those mountains and the rock formations and the canyons. And these people drink the water, cook with the water, they garden, they irrigate their gardens with that water. So they're getting, in some cases, over 150 different minerals. Okay. Also, in these places,
if you're not getting minerals, you're going to get certain illnesses. This is the thesis, right?
That's correct. Okay. There's over, let's see here. There's 600 different diseases which are nutritional deficiency diseases. Okay. There's 60 minerals, and on the average, you're going to get 10 to 15 different diseases from each deficiency. Okay. Everything from birth defects to arthritis to high blood pressure, kidney failure, dialysis, thyroid issues, osteoporosis. And there's over 100 different diseases you get from complications of osteoporosis. Okay. And doctors will never tell you about osteoporosis in your skull. There's 25 different diseases.
I just want to do a little plug for how people could get those minerals too,
okay.
Doc.
Okay, please.
Yes. Well, no, if you're interested in anything Doc's saying, getting the essential minerals, essential nutrients, go to Vital Health News, call 888-275-7755. Talk to anyone there. This is Longevity Consultants. And your basic product, the basic health pack, gives you those essential nutrients, right, Doc?
That's correct. We call it the Healthy Start Pack. It has over 100 nutrients in it, 90 of which are agreed upon universally by scientists all over the world that they are the ones that are required to maximize your health and your lifespan. Okay, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 3 fatty acids. And it's kind of interesting. When you look at these advertisements on TV, they have one for Ensure, you know, this sort of diet
Right.
in a bottle kind of thing, which they use to feed people through their G2s and their comas and things like that, or people who are seniors and they have all kinds of problems. And this is something you can use as one of your 3 meals a day or 2 of your 3 meals a day, called Ensure, ENSURE. They say complete nutrition. And then they say, they brag about, we have 27 vitamins and minerals in there.
Mm.
That's not even a third of the 90 essential nutrients. Okay. And
Wow.
so that's a criminal advertisement. Complete
Well,
nutrition
so
is
so
what they
go back
say.
to what you were saying about longevity too. And you were holding up that product before I jumped in there. What were
Oh,
you?
well,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
that.
holding up the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 25 different diseases that occur from osteoporosis of the skull alone. Okay. There's 12 pairs of cranial nerves and your spinal cord, all of which are formed in the brain and come out through the skull. When you have osteoporosis in any bone, whether it's your leg bone, your arm bone, your neck bone, your pelvis, your shoulder blades, your skull, all your bones, when you have osteoporosis, you're losing minerals. So the bones try to maintain strength by increasing the matrix, okay, the rebar, if you will. And the bones get bigger. A normal human skull is 1/4 of an inch thick under ideal circumstances and perfect nourishing. But when you have osteoporosis, your skull gets 1 inch thick,
Mm.
okay? And all these
Why does it
tunnels
get,
that they,
wait, why does it get thicker if you're losing bone?
no, you're losing minerals.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The rebar, if you will, expands saying, here I am, come minerals, I'm looking for you. And so it keeps getting
Oh,
bigger and bigger and bigger, trying to attract more minerals.
okay. Okay. I get it. Okay.
Okay. Well, doctors don't get it. Okay. And it used to be, yeah, yeah, it used to be called Paget's disease. Okay.
Mhm.
I've changed the name to Wallach's disease because Paget believed in 1817 when he discovered it, he was a pathologist. He was doing autopsies and cracking people's skulls open when they're dead. And he noticed that their skull was 1 inch thick and he named it after himself. And he said, this is a genetic disease in older people because that was the new thing back then, the genetics. Well, it turns out it's just simple nutritional deficiency diseases. So I renamed it after myself about a year ago. So when you read this book, it's all in your head. You'll see Paget's disease / Wallach's disease, because I didn't want people to go for the next 1,000 years to believe that Paget's disease was a genetic disease. There's nothing you can do about it. I reverse that all the time. You know, people, they get tinnitus ringing in their ears. They'll get vertigo. Okay, I call it Wallach's vertigo because it's a simple nutritional deficiency. The auditory branch of the 8th cranial nerve is being squeezed when you get tinnitus in the ear. The vestibular branch of the 8th cranial nerve is being squeezed when you get vertigo and dizziness. Your doctor is going to do an implant in your head. Okay, he's going to give you surgery. He's going to give you drugs. When really all you need to do is take the 90 essential nutrients. We have the healthy bone and joint pack. You throw in our MSN with that. It'll rebuild your skull. The skull goes down to the normal size, takes the pressure off all the nerves. And the 10th cranial nerve is a big one. I'll tell you a sad story about that. The 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, controls the rate and rhythm of the heart, controls your diaphragm. A lot of people get hiccups. You know, they get older, they get bouts of hiccups. That's because that 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, is being squeezed. The recurrent branch controls the diaphragm. Then people, they'll have gastric bypass because they have terrible pain in their stomach. And it's called gastroparesis because that vagus nerve, that 10th cranial nerve that's being squeezed, also controls your stomach. But the one that really is the killer is atrial fibrillation. Have you ever heard of atrial fibrillation, AFib? Yeah, AFib, atrial fibrillation, can be caused by 2 things. Number one, osteoporosis of the skull, squeezing the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, causing that problem, okay? And your heart starts doing weird things. You can also shrink as you get older. Your discs are getting thinner. The vertebrae get closer together, smashing the roots of the first 4 thoracic spinal nerves coming out of your spinal vertebrae in your thorax, which control the rate and rhythm of the heart. Either one of those things happening can cause AFib, or both of them together can cause AFib. Okay. Now,
So
there was a guy.
you want your vagus nerve to be as connected as possible. This is what you're saying.
Well, it's
Yeah.
connected, but we want it to be functioning is
Function. Yeah.
100%. See, it's
Yes.
connected, but it's being squeezed by that bone matrix when you have Wallach's disease, aka Paget's disease. Okay, because your skull now is 1 inch thick, squeezing it as they're going, and the nerves going through the tunnel. You got to rebuild the bone. That bone matrix shrinks. It goes back down to a 1/4 of an inch thick skull instead of an inch thick skull, opens up those tunnels, takes the pressure off the nerve, and everything goes away without surgery, without drugs. Okay. I do this thousands of times a day all over the world. Now, so anyway, let's see here. Elijah Cummings, who was a U.S. congressman from Baltimore, Maryland for, gosh, 35 years, beloved by everybody. He was on everybody's side. And when he was 68 years old, he got atrial fibrillation. He goes to the cardiologist at Johns Hopkins because, you know, one of the best medical schools, one of the best hospitals on earth. Ask them, they'll tell you. And they say, look, you're going to get a stroke, Congressman Cummings. You're going to get a stroke here because your heart rhythm is out of whack. We have to do an ablation, which means we're going to kill a portion of the heart muscle that's running away with you here, and it'll stop it and it will save you from having a stroke. He said, well, we got to do that. So he goes in, they get 2 cardiologists from Johns Hopkins Medical School. They anesthetize him in the hospital. They're in the teaching hospital. All the students are looking. They cut his chest open. They take a hot soldering iron and touch it to his heart muscle to kill that part of the heart muscle. As soon as they touch him with that soldering iron, he dies.
Wait, why are they cutting off? I don't understand. They're even
they believed, falsely of course, they believed that he was having this irregular heartbeat because one portion of his heart muscle was getting bad electrical signals. And if they were to kill that nerve, it would stop the bad electrical signals and the heart would go back to a normal rhythm.
But your solution would have been what?
Rebuild the skull, take the pressure off that 10th cranial nerve, okay? Rebuild the disc, take the pressure off the 4 spinal nerves, because they didn't say which one it was, because they didn't even consider that. They just said, well, your heart's going crazy, we got to stop it. And so they killed him in like 0.3 of a millisecond when they touched his heart with that heated soldering iron.
Well,
right after they killed him, they went out for a double cheeseburger and a shake. The next day, they couldn't even remember his name.
That's awful. Oh my God. What? That's a crime.
It is a crime. How can a surgeon kill a U.S. congressman in their workplace and they don't even get an inquiry? They don't even have a hearing on it. Nothing.
Well, don't you think you have to go to the medical schools and re-educate doctors?
Well, you know, you got to go to the state legislatures first, okay? Because doctors aren't going to voluntarily change what they're doing. Why would they cut their incomes in half to make you happy? They have 3 sons in college and tuition's coming up, and he didn't want to go from a Jaguar to a Volkswagen. You know, the house needs a new roof. Got it?
The
majority of people today, Alan, go into medicine for the money. They don't go into medicine to be a healer.
Well, that's why you're different, Doc. You've dedicated probably, what, 70 years to helping people.
Well, yes, 72 years. I started helping people. And it's one of those things where you have to appreciate that the information's there. That's what makes it a crime. The information's there. Okay. For instance, birth defects. Let's just look at trisomy 21, Down syndrome.
Yeah.
70–80% of Down syndrome occurs in women over the age of 55. Occurs in pregnancies over age 55. Younger women rarely, if ever, get it. Brothers and sisters of kids who are born with or were aborted, brothers and sisters don't get babies. If it was a genetic thing,
right,
they would all have a high risk of babies being brothers and sisters from the same mother, father, right?
Right, yeah.
Doesn't happen. So why is it that these older women are the ones? Well, that's because they're not eating very well. They're not supplementing. They've been eating gluten for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. They can't absorb anything because their villi are all dead in their intestines, even if they're supplementing. And so the embryo in the earliest of stages doesn't get what it needs. So they wind up with all these birth defects. And so that's been my push all along from the very beginning. If you want to maximize health and longevity, you got to start 6 months before the pregnancy occurred. Okay, no bad foods for the mother and father. They got to take the 90 essential nutrients. And what is it they say about COVID? What group of people have the highest risk of COVID?
Well, I know what you say. The Italians were high risk.
Well, yeah, that's okay. Let's change the question
Yeah.
here.
What
The
type of
Italians,
yeah.
okay, the Italians, of course, have a very high risk, okay, because they eat gluten, their intestines are dead. Let's look at the Italians. They have, let's see here, 60 million people, okay, 60 million people, and they have 314 infections and 35,000 deaths with 60 million people. You take Thailand with 66 million people, they have 3,600 infections, which is only 10%. They only have 59 deaths, which is like 1/7
And the
the number of
difference is,
deaths.
give them the punch of what the difference was their diet and what was the key ingredient in their diet.
Okay, well, in Italy, it's all gluten, damaging the intestines, so you cannot absorb nutrients, even if you're supplementing. Where in Thailand, they're a classic Asian country. They live on sweet potatoes and rice.
Right.
No gluten.
Right.
Okay. So let's look at one more set here, and then I'll answer the original question. The other set is, let's look at the, okay, let's look at India and China. Both of them have 1.4 billion people.
Right.
Both of them have 1.4 billion. China has 90,000 infections and 4,000 deaths. India has 6 million infections versus 90,000 and 104,000 deaths. Okay, has 30 times, has 30 times the death rate than,
and the difference
than China does.
And the difference between the diet.
Well, here's the diet. Here's the clue. India is totally Indians. They don't have any black people and Mexicans and things like that, or Spanish in there. It's all India. Okay, Indians.
Right.
95% of all the deaths occur in the northern 1/3 of India. 5% of the deaths from COVID occur in the southern 2/3.
Right.
84% of the infections occur in the northern 1/3 of India. 16% of the infections occur in the southern 2/3. Well, the northern 1/3 of India is all gluten, wheat, brought around oats. The southern 1/3 of India is all rice and sweet potatoes. Okay. And then you look at China, they're all sweet potatoes and rice. They have 90,000 infections versus 6 million in India. They have 4,700 infections, or excuse me, 4,700 deaths versus 104,000 deaths in India. But 95% of the deaths are in the northern 1/3 of India, where they only eat wheat. Right. This is all from World Health Organization data. WHO data said all this stuff.
So they're just throwing. The people who are predisposed, that was your original question, have what type of
okay, no, stop. Okay. What I'm asking is, in the United States, let's just look at the United States now. Okay. There's groups of people who have a much higher rate of reported COVID-19 infections and deaths. Who are they?
Overweight people who tend to, okay.
I'm gonna give you a clue.
You're right. You're right. That was part of like the whole sickle cell, the whole thesis you have.
That's right. Okay, sickle cell anemia also occurs in white people and Asian people, but it's called thalassemia in everybody but black people. It's the same exact disease, but they had to give it a different name in white people and Asians because it was supposed to be a genetic disease in black folks.
So why are black folks are more susceptible to COVID? Why?
Okay. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready, and I hope people listening are ready. Yes.
Okay. They eat and drink everything as gluten. Beer, bread, spaghetti, pizza crust, waffles, pancakes, croutons in their salad, right?
Right.
Noodles, spaghetti.
Yeah, I mean.
And they don't supplement. As a group of people, they don't supplement. So I actually have a CD and the book, Black Gene Lies. This is actually the first 10,000 copies were published by Pastor Creflo Dollar out of Atlanta, Georgia, because I saved his daughter at age 12 years of age. She was supposed to be dying of a genetic disease, according to, the medical school there in Atlanta, Georgia. Grady Memorial Hospital. Okay. So I came in and 2 weeks cured her. And they said she was going to die within weeks.
So you're saying black, white, Chinese, Indian, whatever, we all have the same genetic makeup. It's what we put in our body that makes us predisposed to all that.
The disease, that's right. Or what we put in our body and what we don't put in our body. I'm going to ask you a question here. Does a black dog have the same nutritional requirements as a white dog?
Absolutely. All human beings have the same nutritional requirement. I guess
all vertebrates, including human beings, whales, hummingbirds, okay, all have the same requirements. And that's why my thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. Okay. And that's why Bruce Lipton and I, you've heard of him.
Yeah, considered.
Yeah. Okay. He and I are considered the 2 fathers of the science of epigenetics. He and I did an interview about a month ago now, and it was recorded, and we had it finally edited and the cover. So we have a 2 CD set is coming out this week yet. It'll be out like tomorrow, I think. Okay. And this 2 CD set is called Epigenetics, The Death of the Genetic Theory of Disease Transmission, just like the book, which came out in 2004. Okay. Just like the book. Okay. The Death of the Genetic Theory of Disease Transmission. And this 2 CD set is going to change the world, Alan. Okay. Because you can listen to this as you're driving in your car and this, that, and the other. And here's the 2 guys. 30 years ago, we both came to the same conclusion that there are no genetically transmitted diseases. There are no genetically transmitted birth defects. But he came from it from a totally different direction than I did. We come from 2 different directions, but we got to the same conclusion. And this was all discussed and questioned. We had a moderator, okay, who was used to inquiring in news things, okay. And so this was in the radio studio, so the quality is just off the roof good. Every family needs to get a hold of that set, the book, okay, Epigenetics, The Death of Genetic Theory of Disease Transmission. They need to get a hold of that CD set, which will be available tomorrow, okay. And it's one of those things that will make you weep and cry when you realize how simple it is to prevent every disease.
You also mentioned autoimmune disease you want to throw in there too, which is also genetic. I mean, not genetic, it is diet related.
Yeah, autoimmune diseases are diet related because your immune system requires the 90 essential nutrients. Okay, well, and again, go ahead.
No, I just want to talk about, you mentioned epigenetics. Can you explain what that means so people can understand that?
Yeah, well, epigenetics, the term was coined in 1940 by a guy by the name of Conrad Waddington. Okay, and this guy, Conrad Waddington, has a PhD in neuroscience. I mean, he was studying people with Parkinson's disease and that kind of stuff. And he realized, he's a very smart guy, and he's realizing he's seeing all these people who, and doctors are saying it's a genetic thing, blah, blah, blah. And so he's looking at all this and he's saying, well, the mom and dad don't have the problem. How come the son has the problem? Okay. He says, there's got to be more than genetics here. He says, so what comes before something? He just pulled the word epi out of the thesaurus, right? And put epi in front of genetics. And then he didn't do anything with it for 40 years. He just named it and printed up. He said, I'm going to suggest this as a science, and nothing happened until Bruce Lipton and I came along. And I did my 32,000 autopsies at the Center for the Biology of Natural Systems. Well, I did 20,000 there, did 1,700 in Qishan Province, China, okay, and so forth, all these big projects. And so you start looking and you realize there are no genetically transmitted diseases. These are all nutritional deficiency diseases. And doctors called them genetic diseases 200 years ago when they didn't know anything about nutrition. They still don't know anything about nutrition. They blame everything on either genetics or they blame it on things like autoimmune diseases, okay, none of which is true. And so this is why we have such a great rate of success. And if you want to add 25 to 50 healthy years to your life very economically, we're talking about, $3 a day per 100 pounds of body weight, cheaper than a cup of Starbucks coffee. You want to get a hold of this book and the CD set, Immortality, goes into these top 10 cultures who are the longest lived peoples on earth. They've been that way since the beginning of time. So why is it that they're the longest lived people on earth since the beginning of time? It's not because they have a better medical system than us. They don't even have a medical system. Okay, grandma is still the doctor in their household. Okay, and so it's because of what they're eating, and they don't even know it. Okay, the glacier is grinding up all these rocks, and they're getting the minerals. Now here's the crazy thing. And you know, the ocean's dying. That's why I was one of the featured speakers at the Tesla thing last year in August, right? I was one of the featured speakers because I figured out why the carbon dioxide is going up and the ocean's dying, why the reefs are all dying, why the Great Barrier Reef is dying. I know exactly why. I had it all detailed with all the maps and everything. I show them how it happened. Well, here it is. This is on your show now, Alan.
I'm excited. Thank you for sharing.
You're going to help save the earth, okay? And again, the DVD's available right now, okay, as well as the magazine from Tesla. All right, here it is. Right now, there's 1 million dams, hydroelectric dams in the world, okay, for electricity. And of course, all the environmentalists are happy. They want electricity. They want hydroelectric. They don't want fossil fuels. They're blaming the carbon dioxide going up on fossil fuels and cars and heating engines and furnaces and all that kind of stuff, none of which is true. There's 1 million hydroelectric dams. And what piles up behind the dams? Silt.
The silt, the minerals, the
You get an A+. Now,
Thank you.
what was the food of the algae and the plankton in the oceans?
I guess it
The
was
minerals in the silt.
Okay.
Now, what is the job of the plants in the oceans? The ocean makes up 3/5 of the Earth's surface. 95% of the total mass of plants on Earth occurs in the ocean.
Right.
Compared to very little on the land mass.
The ocean, the algae in the ocean produces what? Carbon dioxide?
No, it burns it.
Burns it.
Okay. It's a fuel for plants, whether it's an oak tree or an algae.
The carbon dioxide is a fuel for plants.
That's correct. Now, the oak tree only uses a lot of carbon dioxide in the spring when the bud becomes a leaf for a couple of weeks. After that, there's no real growth there anymore. It's just maintaining itself. Whereas the algae is constantly doing this, right? And so the algae will suck the carbon dioxide out of the air, split off the oxygen, put some in the water for the fish and put some in the air for us and other vertebrates. But also that carbon, it takes that carbon gas and turns it into carbon chains to make carbohydrates, sugars, amino acid chains, fiber for the stems and kelp and things like that.
Right.
And so why is it the carbon dioxide is going up? Same number of plants are out there in the ocean. They're not getting this. We're killing the algae because we've cut off the food supply to the algae by damming up the rivers to make electricity. Now here's the craziest one, and this is why they picked me, because I had all the data. I mean, I have the data, okay, to be the Tesla, one of their 5 featured speakers. When you look at the Great Barrier Reef off of the west coast, or actually off of the east coast of Queensland, Australia, there are 3 major dams in Queensland that were put there about 20 years ago for electricity. Those 3 rivers produced all the food for the western side of the Great Barrier Reef, which had been there for millions of years. It cut off the food supply, so the reef began to struggle.
Right.
Environmentalists are jumping up and down. Well, now there's, in addition to those 1 million hydroelectric dams around the world for electricity, there's also 2 million dams on the big rivers for water conservation and also, fresh water conservation and also for irrigation. There's 400 million farm ponds around the world to catch creek water. And so the earliest bits of minerals there's in suspension and solution in the creek water gets dumped in these farm ponds. And then that gets to the rivers gets hung up behind the dams. And it's almost like distilled water getting out in the ocean. Now, there have been 8 that I know of. I'm sure there's more, but I was able to find 8 PhD studies, okay, on what nutrients does the algae need to convert carbon dioxide to oxygen and carbon chains. There's 17 minerals they require to do that. If any one of those 17 minerals is low or is missing, nothing's going to happen. Now, here's the deal. When you are deficient in calcium, you're going to get arthritis, maybe high blood pressure and some, other things going on. maybe bone spurs and so on, kidney stones, all from low calcium intake, but you don't die. The same thing with the algae. The algae doesn't die, but it can't do its job of converting carbon dioxide to oxygen and carbon chains.
Right.
It's there
Okay.
struggling along. Okay.
So we have to get rid of the hydroelectric dams, you're saying?
No,
Okay.
that'll
No.
never happen.
Okay. Right.
The environmentalists would rather kill and eat their mother than get rid of the hydroelectric dams.
Okay.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have these augers. It will take the silt from behind the dam, around the dam, so go downstream, maybe through the dam, and all these things will be run by solar power, solar panels on top of the dams. And so we're right now in the process of applying for grants all over the place. The first one we're going to save is the Great Barrier Reef. All of the reefs all over the world are dying because all of the people who live on volcanic island chains, whether it's Japan, Hawaii, places like that, on the eastern side of the Great Barrier Reef, all these Asian volcanic islands, all the residents dam up the rivers for electricity and for irrigation. Okay. And so even though the volcanoes, some of them are dead, they won't come back to life for another 1,000 years. Some of them are still alive, but the minerals cannot be utilized because they're being dammed up behind the rivers.
Right.
And so I have
have
all
to
the maps. I have all the maps of all these things. All these things are
take
all
the
these.
silt,
Yeah.
reroute it beyond the dam, back into the ocean. We save the ocean and we save the forests as well.
And we save humanity and all other vertebrates.
Right. Okay. That's a big.
And this will be this will be an overnight job. It will be overnight. Now you've heard of amber, not the woman, but the stuff. It's like millions of.
The pine
it's millions.
sap,
That's from 1 million years ago. Okay.
Right.
Pine sap from 1 million years ago. Amber. They're finding amber from 10 million years ago that has extremely high levels of carbon dioxide in it. Now, why did that happen? Well, they traced on either side of that year, okay, when the carbon dioxide went up in the amber, they found there had been no volcanic eruptions on either side before or afterwards for 6,000 years. No more volcanic ash, no more minerals into the ocean.
Okay.
And the carbon dioxide only came back down when they started having volcanic eruptions again.
Oh, the volcanic eruptions added to the minerals in the ocean.
The ash is minerals from the center of the earth.
So we need all this then.
Yes, we need the ash, we need the silt, and we don't have to get rid of the dams. We just have to go around them or through them or over them, because nobody's going to give up their electricity. Now, I'll tell you one more piece here. I should have told you this in the beginning, but here we go. This will be my final thing. We can take some calls or questions.
Okay.
Okay. Now, we had very little problems health-wise in the Western world until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, on Pearl Street, New York City, in the bluff overlooking the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. At that time, Thomas Edison and his chief technician, a Jonathan Leibs, pulled the switch in the first commercial electric generating plant. And in 10 years, there were 60 new genetic diseases that had never been seen before. Well, prior to that pulling of that switch to turn on the electricity, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, Grandma was the physician. She was taking the wood ashes out of the wood stove and the fireplace every morning, putting them in the garden. Well, wood ashes weren't carbon. Wood ashes were minerals that were left when you burnt the tree. Because the tree sucks the minerals out of the ground. You burn the wood for fuel, okay? And then the minerals that are left, she would put them in the garden. Now, there were no obese people prior to that. If you wanted to see an obese person, you had to go to a circus or something like that and see the fat lady who was 200 pounds. Now, Alan, I deal with people who are 350 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds, 600 pounds, hundreds of times a month now.
Right.
It never happened historically before electricity. So people's mineral supply stopped when we went to electricity because there was no more wood ashes to put into the garden. Now, when Grandma had cravings, okay, it's called pica, where you have cravings, P-I-C-A, look it up. She would eat wood ashes and her cravings would go away. today, when grandma has craving, she'll eat pretzels and pie and ice cream and drink a couple of beers, which are made out of gluten, and she'll gain 100 pounds.
Right.
So
So
this is why we have the problems.
you have the answers here, and all the answers can be also found here at the longevity hotline, which is Vital Health News. Call 888-275-7755. There are people standing by to take your calls and talk to you about some of these products and some of these solutions that Doc had. So Doc, we just have we have another, what, 15 minutes or so of your time?
Yeah, we have time. We could do 3 or 4 or 5 people.
Okay, no, so let's say Carolyn's been waiting. So Carolyn, go ahead, ask Doc those important questions.
Yes, Doc, this gentleman is 80, weighs 170. He's having kidney failure. He has ringing in the ears. He has some heart issues. He called up for some help.
Okay, he's 180 pounds, right?
Yes.
Okay, 80 years old. His ringing in the ears, tinnitus. He's got osteoporosis of the skull, squeezing the auditory branch of the eighth cranial nerve, which is not unusual for an 80-year-old guy, right? He also has kidney issues. Did he say if he was on dialysis yet, or were they thinking about that? Or
they want to put him on there instantly, and he's putting it off.
Okay, good. Now, well, dialysis, of course, is required when your kidneys stop producing urine. I get people all the time who have not urinated in 10 years. I mean, they have not urinated one drop in 10 years. They're on dialysis 6 days a week. In 2 weeks' time on my program, which I'm going to share with you here, they're urinating. They drop the dialysis to 3 times per week instead of 6, and in 2 more weeks they're totally off of dialysis, which they've been on for 25 years because they didn't want a kidney transplant. So when you have kidney failure and they want to put you on dialysis, rarely is there anything wrong with your kidneys. 99% of the time, the arteries that bring the dirty blood into the kidney for filtering are plugged. So he's got to get rid of all the bad stuff. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, butter, iron, oats, absolutely no sugar. And I want him to take 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month. 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month, the full dose, everything twice a day. I also want him to get the MSM, get 2 bottles of that a month, so he can take 3 with each meal. That's going to help support maintenance repair of cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, disc between the vertebrae, bone rakes your bone itself, so we can get rid of this osteoporosis of the skull, which is contributing to all this. And so it's three times a day, 2 bottles a month of the MSM. He needs vitamin D3. He can take 3 of those twice a day. That's 2 bottles a month. He can take the glucogel or collagen. He can take 2 bottles of the capsules a month, where he can take 15 a day, 5 with each meal. I weigh 142, and I take 5 with each meal of the glucogel to rebuild cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, disc between the vertebrae. The secret sauce here for kidney failure is the Ultimate Daily Classic tablets. I'd have him get 3 of those bottles a month, so he can take 3 of those capsules with each meal. And they're designed to support healthy blood pressure, which usually goes along with bad filtration of your blood by the kidneys, because they'll release a hormone. The kidneys will release a hormone called renin, which drives your blood pressure up, hoping to get more blood to come into the kidneys. And so I want him to have 3 of those Ultimate Daily Classic tablets 3 times a day. That'll be 3 bottles a month. That'll support healthy blood pressure, but also support healthy blood flow through those blocked arteries. And it wouldn't be surprising that in 2 to 4 weeks, that all the signals that the doctor's getting that says, look, you've been dealing with this for 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, we got to get you on dialysis. And usually 3, 4, 5 weeks, everything's good. You don't, even the doctor's throwing up his hands. He says, I don't know why, but you don't need dialysis anymore. Okay. So we do this literally thousands of times a month all over the world. And this is not a difficult thing. And again, you can get this in the book and the CD, Black Gene Lies. You can get that in the book and the CD, Immortality. You get that in our quartet of books, Let's Play Doctor, Let's Play Herbal Doctor, Passport Aromatherapy, and It's All in Your Head, which deals over, those 4 books deal with 600 different diseases and tells you what to do about them. So you don't need surgery. You don't need pharmaceuticals.
I love
Doc, I just had one question from the online chat saying, what about all the ash that's falling on California from the fires? What is that good for the soil?
Well, ash is falling on California from the fires is good because it's minerals. Okay, but you have to appreciate that the fires are burning up the carbon dioxide, and why can't they put out the fires? Why is it, after 6 months' time, there's still only 8% contained? What's going on here? Well, that's because the atmosphere, our air, has become the fuel. What is the basic component of wood, Alan?
Carbon.
Carbon. You get an A+. What is the basic component of coal?
Carbon, yeah.
Carbon. Okay.
So
And so, yeah. And so what happens is, as these fires are burning the wood, the carbon dioxide goes into the air. Okay. And there's no way that the trees and the plants can stop burning, because the carbon dioxide in the air has become the fuel. The carbon dioxide in the air is rising, not because of fossil fuels and cars and that kind of stuff, because we've dammed up the dams for electricity, and the silt is not getting out to the coastal algae here on the West Coast, from all the way from Canada down to Mexico. The coastal algae are starving for those minerals. They cannot break the carbon dioxide down to oxygen and carbon chains. And that's why they can't put the fires out, because the atmosphere has become carbon fuel.
Right. I get it. So even though there is ash remineralizing the California soil, it's a tragic way to get your minerals back into the earth, right? Go ahead.
Yes, well, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Not enough. See,
Okay.
and the reason why they can't put the fires out is because, they'll put the fire out and they'll start putting the equipment back in the truck. And before they close the door in the truck, the fire springs out again, because the atmosphere is the fuel.
Right. Okay, Carolyn has a few more questions, and then we'll have to wrap it up. So go ahead, Carolyn.
Yes, Doc. This gentleman is 81, 210 pounds. He called with inflammation, glaucoma, and sciatica.
Okay. Well,
And
he's got.
And lastly,
ahead.
he does not have his gallbladder.
Okay. I'm assuming they surgically removed it. He was born
Yes.
with one. They surgically removed it. Okay. Oh, how much did he weigh?
210.
210. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This guy has typical problems of an 80-year-old guy. He's got osteoporosis. He's got osteoporosis of the skull. If we questioned him, he'd have ringing in his ears, or dizziness, or lack of the sense of smell. And macular degeneration. This is one. I actually have a CD out called "Seeing is Believing." One of the first questions I got following a lecture one time about 20 years ago or so, the guy says, my mother, she's in her 80s and she's been blind, with macular degeneration for 8 years. Is there anything you do for that? And I say, yeah, I can reverse that. Guy jumps up in the audience and says, Wallach, you're a GD liar. I said, well, who are you? He says, well, I'm an eye surgeon. I diagnose them by the hundreds every month. And you cannot reverse advanced macular degeneration. I said, well, let's have a little wager here. He says, you're on. So to make a long story short, it was a long discussion, but to make a long story short, he agreed if I won and I could cure this gal, that he would buy me a very expensive bottle of red wine from France. He would take me out to Ruth Chris's Steakhouse for a big steak dinner. He would apologize in public, which became that CD. And also he would, pay for all the supplements for these people. Okay, so I said, well, give me 12 if you want, 12 of them that you've diagnosed that have been legally blind 6, 8, 10 years, because then there'll be no equivocation about the diagnosis. You diagnose them and you say they haven't, they've been blind for 6 or 8 and 10 years. And he brought me 27 charts the next day. He says, pick your 12. I said, well, let's take all 27. So make a long story short, and we put them on the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, 1 per 100 pounds of body weight. We put them on the MSM. We put them on the glucogel. We put them on the vitamin D3. We put them on a antioxidant. We put them on an antioxidant, which we call Pollen Burst. We had another antioxidant, Cell Shield RTQ. We put them on those to help the inflammation in the eyes and the arteries and things. And we put them on Vision FX and Occutive. And in 90 days, 25 of the 27 could read 20/20 without glasses, and took 2 more weeks, and the other 2 could read 20/20 without glasses. So he had to pay off, okay, which he did. And so I've been using that formula for these 25 years, and we actually take people who've been diagnosed with macular degeneration, because doctors don't know what I'm telling you. They don't know that. And so if they don't have glaucoma, they don't have they don't have pressure in the eye where they need drops in the eye, they don't have cataracts that they can operate on, they don't have macular degeneration, but they call it macular degeneration. It's really ONA, which is one of those, it's the second cranial nerve, the optic nerve being squeezed when you have osteoporosis of the skull. And so I always treat the osteoporosis of the skull opens up, takes the pressure off the nerve, and their vision comes back, even if they've been legally blind for 12 years.
I love it.
Okay,
I'm
you
on
have
board.
another patient there, Carolyn, another.
Yes. This is a 40-year-old woman who weighs 200. They're getting ready to put a stent in her heart. She does have a muscle tear near the heart, uterus growth, and some boils on her skin.
And she weighs 140 something pounds.
No, she weighs around, she weighs about 210.
Oh, 210. Okay.
She's large.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, for a woman, even if she's like 5'6" or something like that, I'd want her to weigh like 135, 140. So we need to get her to lose about 60, 70 pounds or so. So I want her to get the keto caramel diet, either the shake or the bar. 2 or 3 meals a day should be a keto meal. The third meal could be a regular meal, but she cannot have wheat, barley, rye, and oats. She's got to be gluten-free. She's got to be living on that third meal. It's got to be rice and sweet potatoes and vegetables. And then at 210 pounds or whatever it is, I want her to get on 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month, 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month. I want her to get the ultimate daily classic tablets. So you can take 3 of those twice a day for clogged arteries in the heart and the brain and every place else, and legs and the kidneys. I want her to have the vitamin D3. She can take 3 of those twice a day, 2 bottles a month. I want her to have the MSM, 3 of those twice a day, as 1 bottle a month to help rebuild her skull and her other bones and disc and all that kind of stuff. And she'll lose a half a pound to 2 pounds a day. Blood pressure comes down. And let's see here. Let's go in that direction, and let's hear from her every 2 weeks, and we'll walk her through this.
Now, will this protocol also address a uterus growth and the boils on her skin?
Well, getting rid of gluten-free will get rid of the boils on her skin, okay? Because skin issues come along from deficiencies that are caused by gluten consumption. And we're talking about eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, rosacea, those kind of things are all caused, and acne are all caused by gluten problems and not being able to absorb certain nutrients. And so as soon as she gets off all the bad foods, including the glutens, and take the 90 essential nutrients, that skin stuff will go away, okay? It's a symptom of the gluten issue killing her intestines, so she cannot absorb the nutrients. Okay, that's the deal. And when it comes to the things going on in the uterus, I need more information. I mean, are we talking about a uterine fibroid, which is a benign thing? At her age, anything can be going on in there. Is it cancer? Is it benign? Is it in her cervix? Is it deep in the uterus? Is it in the uterus wall muscle? Is it in the lining of the uterus? We need more information there. But everything we're doing here is going to support her immune system, reduce inflammation. And so she can get back to us with more details about what's going on in the uterus.
Okay, one more question, then we have to let Doc go. So go ahead, Carolyn.
I'll follow up with her and let you know. And thank you for being so thorough.
Did you have another one? Anything else, Carolyn, this week? Otherwise, we'll... No? Okay. No. Otherwise, thank you all for being here. Doc, in order to leave people with some good ideas, what's your final word? And thank you for your time, as always. We'll be doing this again in 2 weeks, but final words there. Yes.
Okay. Well, the final words are there's 2 things we have to do to maximize our health and longevity. This goes for, you're getting this information for free. Please take it and use it. You'll add 25 to 50 healthy years to yourself and your family. Okay. You'll save a lot of money. Okay. Save a lot of unnecessary misery. You want to get rid of all the bad stuff. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils of any kind. Well, extra virgin olive oil, well, that's the worst. Okay. No oils. Okay. So people say, well, what about all these aromatherapy oils? Well, they're not oils. They're esters. There are only 2 carbons long. There's no double bonds in them. They're called oils because 2,000 years ago, they were slippery like other oils. And they put them in the same class, but they're esters. They're not in oil. So they're okay for topical treatment, okay, and aromatherapy and all that kind of stuff because they're truly not oils. They're okay. And then absolutely no gluten. You want to be able to maximize your absorption. Why does a 3-year-old get the COVID virus, has minimal cold-like symptoms for 3 days, and it's over with, no problem? They're positive now. They have positive antibodies for COVID because they had the infection, but it was just minor common cold-like symptoms for 3 days. Well, then why is it that a 63-year-old, a 73-year-old, an 80-year-old people, they get really serious complications and they die? Well, I'll throw one at you here, a guy by the name of Herman Cain. He was the CEO of Godfather's Pizza, a billionaire, 74 years old. And the last day of June of this year, he was diagnosed with COVID. They put him in a private hospital, a billionaire put him in a private hospital. They gave him oxygen. They gave him intravenous antiviral drugs. By the 29th of July, less than a month later, he dies. 3 days later, they do an autopsy on him, which I reviewed, okay? And they said he didn't have any viral lung infection. He died because every capillary, every one of these microscopic blood vessels in his body was clogged with strange blood clots from all the red blood cells lining up in the capillaries, but there were no platelets, which are the things we make in our bone marrow to make good, healthy blood clots, so he won't bleed to death, okay? And so the reason why he had a respiratory thing was because he couldn't carry oxygen throughout his body because all his capillaries were full of these red blood cells and nothing was going anywhere. And so they may have diagnosed him incorrectly because he had 8 of these pre-existing conditions. Okay, he'd had ulcerative colitis and colon cancer, they said. I'd want to see the slides because they said his colon cancer was in remission. It was probably just ulcerative colitis. He also was 50 pounds overweight. He had obesity, right? And he had arthritis. And so he had all these pre-existing conditions, which they were just treating the symptoms of. They never got rid of them. If they got rid of him, he'd still be alive today because his bone marrow would be good. So he could make good platelets. He could make good white blood cells to go and kill the virus. He could make good red blood cells. And anybody who's going to a doctor once a month for iron shots and B12 shots, or they go for like once every 2 months for a transfusion so they get some platelets from somebody else, they have a gluten problem. They cannot absorb nutrients, so their bone marrow is not working and doing its job.
Right.
And so does the doctor not know that? Maybe he doesn't know it.
He doesn't know
sure?
it. He doesn't know what you know, Doc.
Well,
Thanks
that's
for
true.
being here. Thank you for being here. We're going to do it again in 2 weeks. Get your questions ready. We'll be back on the same channel and Zoom call. And Carolyn, thanks always for your contribution. If you want to find out about anything that Doc has talked about, go to this website, this telephone number, call them. There are people waiting, people like Caroline. And Doc, thanks again for all.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Alan. God bless each and every one of you. Let's save America. Let's save America, and then we'll save the world.
Thank you.
We are doing that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. It's Alan Steinfeld for New Realities. Check this out. See you later.